There's another big prize besides winning the White House, it's control of Congress. Right now, the House of Representatives is solid in the hands of Republicans. They control 246, Democrats 188. A big enough change there is considered unlikely. But the Senate is a different story. Currently, the Republicans have 54 seats compared to 46 with Dems, so a shift of a handful could change everything there. 7 Senate races are considered toss-ups, including the one in New Hampshire. Polls show Senator Kelly Ayotte and Governor Maggie Hassan in a tie race. Adam went to New Hampshire and found that the outcome there could be a function of how the voters feel about the people atop the ticket.
Keith, how are you? Great to see you. I'm going to give you a hug.
Senator Kelly Ayotte is fighting for her political life, working the crowd at a veterans home and reminding them she works for all New Hampshire voters, not the Republican Party.
I'm just really honored to be here.
Afterward, Ayotte says her work restoring federal funding for Liberty House embodies her approach to politics, pragmatic and bipartisan.
I've worked very hard across the aisle. The heroin and opioid epidemic we're facing as a state, I've worked across the aisle. I've worked across the aisle to get local care for our veterans.
In a 2-minute span, Ayotte uses the phrase across the aisle 6 times. A few days later, I catch her Democratic challenger, New Hampshire Governor Maggie Hassan, at a defense industry event. Turns out Hassan sees herself as exactly the same type of politician.
Bipartisan Medicaid expansion programs. We've worked together in a bipartisan way.
And there's another similarity between these two opponents. Each has to deal with a presumptive presidential nominee who's deeply unpopular. A recent Boston Herald Franklin Pierce poll found that 62% of New Hampshire voters have an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump, and that 61% view Hillary Clinton unfavorably. But Hassan and Ayotte are handling that shared challenge very differently.
He has secured the votes for the nomination.
Ayotte is striking a tricky balance, saying she'll vote for Trump but won't endorse him. She's also among the big-name Republicans who won't attend the GOP convention this summer.
Because the New Hampshire voters aren't at the convention, they're here in New Hampshire.
As for Hassan, not only is she attending the DNC, she's a Clinton superdelegate. In fact, as she tells it, her priorities and Clinton's are basically identical. While aligning so closely with such an unpopular candidate may seem risky, St. Anselm political science professor Chris Galdieri says there's some logic to Hassan's approach.
I think Clinton is going to be less of a danger for Hassan's campaign than Trump is potentially for the Ayotte campaign. I think the danger is not just there, but I think it's ever present for the Ayotte campaign.
And if a reporter doesn't link Ayotte to Trump, Hassan is happy to do it herself.
I am very concerned that my opponent is supporting and voting for Donald Trump.
So, Adam, I don't get what that St. Anselm guy's point was. If they're both equally and wildly unpopular, why is one happy to run in sync?
I think there was an explanation that got left on the cutting room floor. So the idea
well, what
is
is
that
the explanation?
Even though Clinton, and I pressed him on this, Clinton and Trump both remarkably unpopular, but he made the point that Clinton is not going to be out there with crazy comments in the way that Trump is. He said she's not going to, Maggie Hassan's not going to get a call saying Hillary Clinton just said all Mexicans are rapists. Of course, the updated version would be Hillary Clinton's not going to get a call saying that a Mexican judge can't be impartial. So that was his, Trump is a loose cannon in a way that Clinton isn't.
Speaking of that, loose enough that Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, had this to say about his endorsed candidate, Donald Trump, today.
Claiming a person can't do the job because of their race is sort of like the textbook definition of a racist comment. I'm not going to defend these kinds of comments because they're indefensible.
Now, Jesse, every time Trump says anything that's controversial, that's what's going to sink him.
Every
it's the
single
end.
Time.
This is the end. This seems to be the first time where actually there may be a little bit more than typical movement, even though we hadn't seen polls. Does he survive this as well and prosper as well as he has from everything else? I know you don't like it, but that's not my question.
To say I don't like it is an understatement. I think he survives, but I think he survives with wounds that he didn't have before. This is the first moment where I feel like maybe his Teflon is beginning to fade a little bit. I think this has crossed a line that, of the many, many lines he's crossed, this is one of the furthest out. And you are seeing Republicans who were wishy-washy about pushing back on him before. They're not rescinding their endorsements the way we'd like them to, with a few exceptions, but they're at least pushing back strongly.
You know, this is what you're going to hear for 5 months. You're going to hear that's what you're bringing America if you don't decide to go with her candidate. How do you respond to that?
And I say it's a long time till November. But I do think as far as Trump goes, it took so long for it to really sink in. A, how bad he was, and B, that he was really a possibility. And I think people just, they weren't, I think that's why the Teflon is now failing, because people are finally realizing that they have no other choice.
It's worth mentioning, Joe Scarborough today, he on Morning Joe said all Republicans need to rescind their endorsements of Trump. He's going to cost us not just the presidency, but the Senate and the House. And that's unprecedented.
And what did you tell me right before we went on the air? That Trump put out a statement.
He put out a statement about Judge Curiel.
Actually.
Yeah,
what did he
a statement saying, among other things, I'm sorry that people misconstrued my comments about Judge Curiel as a blanket indictment of all Mexicans. Of course I believe that someone's ancestry doesn't keep them from serving.
And what's the end of that? That he won't, you told me?
Not going to talk about this anymore.
Now that's a pretty dramatic thing for him, is it not?
It is. Well, just yesterday there was that remarkable story in Bloomberg News talking about how he had told his campaign, we're doubling down, tripling down on this. We're not going to stop.
That wasn't my favorite part of the call. My favorite call is when he said, we shall overcome. Adam Riley, it's great to see you.
Thanks, Jim.
Holly, long time. Great to see you.
Thanks,
Pleasure,
Jim.
Jesse. Good to see you.